Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Deciphering My Experience. My name is Eric, and we're going to have a wonderful roundtable talk today with some SSP folks. We are joined today by the wonderful Amaria Sweet and Susan Long and Frank Emmart. Welcome to the show, everybody. How you all doing today?
Great,
Good.
thank you.
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
No problem at all. I'm looking forward to this. So we just had just a few minutes worth of chat before we came on here today, and I know everybody's raring to talk about things Antarctic. So I feel we might as well just start right there. Susan and Frank, you had some inquiries in that direction?
Sure.
That's what we were asking about?
Well, yeah, our basic topic of discussion was that there's been a lot of SSP assets that we've been in contact with that have been doing remote views on what's happening in Antarctica, and I'm not really certain if it's an interdimensional thing or if it's actually something that's physically there, but they're saying that there are, like, either us or some version of us is in some sort of stasis in Antarctica, and we're not the only ones that've seen this.
We're a soul shard because we've been told we're Lichsoldaten, and when we were in the German programs, and supposedly that's souls older than any other souls that they've ever seen. They have no idea where we came from.
Wowzers! So, and you guys mean yourselves specifically, right? Like, and you're saying that?
Oh, there's other, yes, us specifically, but there's others out there.
That I don't have any info on. The stuff, to my recollection, is more on the. I don't want to use the word real world as if there's a fake world. It's just that I lack the proper vocabulary. But it's the here and now. The here and now stuff is where my recollections are. So I don't want to.
Sure.
I don't want to say that I'm against the idea of that. It's just I don't have any recollections in that direction.
Certainly.
The Antarctic stuff. So now, do you guys, in your own experiences, do you have recollections of things and stuff beyond what folks are telling you that they know?
I have recollection of seeing like soul shards of us that look like light bodies down there, and there's other people too that are like us down there.
Any?
I know that there are pyramids and even ancient ships that are down there, and that's not even really a mystery anymore. That's a lot of people have actually come forward with that information in the here and now, the real 3D world, so to speak. So, yeah, I mean, it's having a hard time reaching full disclosure because there's a lot of people out there who are naysaying, and they just don't want to believe that it's real, but it's very, very real. There are very ancient pyramids, and there are very ancient ships there.
It's hard for a lot of people to wrap their brains around the concept that our reality seemingly is way closer to what we see in Star Wars movies than what we're seeing around us.
Certainly.
Right.
I mean, it's just the cosmos is that grand. There's that much possibility for things to be, happening differently. It's, a lot more complex than what we've been presented.
I've been really curious about Antarctica myself. That's one of the big things that drew me in when I started to wake up and start connecting the dots with all of the memories and bleed-throughs and dreams that I had had all my life. And that's really interesting, Frank and Susan, how you guys are talking about people remote viewing it. Kind of makes me want to look into that more, since I've been doing soul retrievals for myself and like different energetic body retrievals, timeline retrievals, a lot of that stuff. It'd be really fascinating to look into.
I had just had somebody send me an interesting video clip from some folks that monitor, the atmosphere and everything going on the planet regularly. And they show all the jet streams and things like that. And they're showing, I mean, this is, everyone says you can't argue with science. Well, they're showing the science of what indicates these beams launching north from Antarctica. There's some sort of energy beams firing, and they're proving this stuff. I mean, you can only hide it from so many people in so many directions, but you can't hide the truth from everybody all the time. There's a way to figure things out. I know certain things are going on in Antarctica that are absolutely nefarious and directed energy weapon related. And I can find other folks that can show that there's directed energy weapon related stuff going on as well. It's all a link in the chain. Like, I don't have the chain to throw around the neck of the military industrial complex and hang it over an oak tree, but I have a link in that chain. And there's other people that have links in these chains, and we just need to come out of the shadows at this point.
It's really exciting seeing that information come out, even as nefarious as a lot of it is. I'm excited that we are getting disclosure, because that's what all of us are doing. Those of us who are talking is bringing that out, and so I really am grateful for that. Have you guys seen a lot of like the energetics? I know, like, kind of tying with the energy beams that you're talking about, like the HARP stuff that you've been looking at in Alaska. Like, have you guys also seen a lot of the energies, like the weird clouds and the ripples? And I mean, I know we've talked in the past about like the weird snow that you can light on fire and it turns black and smells plasticky. Have you guys noticed that out there in Iowa or up in Alaska?
It's certainly similar. I mean, all you got to do is look up at the sky and you can see the ripples in the I'm going to say clouds, because they're very clearly not clouds, because you can watch the airplanes dump this crap in the sky. I mean, we could sit out there, for hours on end and just watch, airplane after airplane after airplane dumping more and more chemicals into the sky. And then literally, not even a few hours later, it looks more like a heavy cloud cover. And then before too long, there's a bunch of vibrational ripples that are in those clouds. And then, I mean, what was it? Somebody said to me the other day that they were using electrical discharges in the atmosphere during the Vietnam War to create heavy rains.
Wow.
I mean, so this is not new. I mean, they've been manipulating the weather for at least decades.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's interesting after talking with Idaho Power, because they were the ones that had an article in the newspaper a couple of years ago that they were cloud seeding to help with the drought and to get more rain. But like you're saying, we'll see these beautiful cumulonimbus clouds coming in, it's getting ready to storm, and then bam, crap. And it's just the ripply stuff. So I think they're full of it. There's no way that they're cloud seeding. They're doing the exact opposite. And I think they're increasing the drought.
I agree. I think there's a lot to be said for that in the negative manipulation of the weather. I mean, it's a knowledge is power thing in so many ways, and knowing when something bad is going to happen actually seems to be way more lucrative than planning for good. I'm not promoting that truth, but
about that. With the food, how the food sources have supposedly been disrupted. Well, the farmers out here, the crop farmers, they have farm insurance, and some of them are paid to, just what do you call that? Turn put it back to soil instead of actually harvesting it.
Yep.
Well, you know what? Farming. They're only covered by said insurance if they plant GMOs. If they're going to plant organic, they don't get that coverage. So
it's
they're
true.
SOL.
Yeah, they incentivize GMO. They incentivize turning crops over. They incentivize not growing crops in a lot of cases, to where they just completely they'll shut the whole farm down for a couple of years' time on purpose. And they're creating these shortages that they're saying that there's all these shortages. And then what was it? They were saying something about a big cyber attack that hit the JBS food company that is one of the biggest providers of meat products in this region and several states over.
Yeah, they supply to major sausage companies that you would know in your local grocery, but I'm not going to name any companies.
I mean, you know who they are, but the thing is that they were saying that all these cyber attacks have disrupted their production, but we live down the road from this particular manufacturer, this supplier, and they were running full force. They had employees running overtime. They can't keep up with the demand and hire enough people to keep it moving as much as they need to. It's not so much that there's shortages or that there's cyber attacks are shutting everything down. It's that everybody's afraid to go to work because of the Rona.
Well, it's not just
in a lot of cases.
They're using the Rona as an excuse to tinker with the supply chain to increase, to just inflate the prices of everything. So everybody's scared, about where their next meal's coming from because you're counting change from the sofa just to get gas,
Right. Can I interject a little on like the dry farming thing? It was about 1999, I think, 2000, somewhere in there, when I had first started dating my first husband and we got married. He lived in Ingham, Idaho, and there's a bunch of dry farms out there. And they've known the farmers for years and years. He had basically grown up there his whole life, graduated high school, and we were using like the hill and the farm for like snowmobiling and stuff. And I'm just like, well, ever since I've been out here and everything, these guys haven't done anything with these farmlands. What are they doing? And he said that Monsanto actually pays so many farmers to not harvest anything. And they get more money that way than if they were to actually be responsible farmers and raise local crops so that we could actually have local crops. And it's tons of them out here that are doing that. So, and that's been going on, like I said, since around the turn of this century. That's crazy.
People really need to understand the value or lack thereof contemporarily of the commodities markets. They're leeches to producers. There's people that produce, and then there's people that leech off of producers. And the commodities markets is a leeching system off of people that actually work for a living.
Right.
And that's the problem.
I couldn't agree more.
and then we also have the plot twist of, I can think of one food distributor in particular. I'm not going to mention any names right now, but big Luciferian sex trafficker and trafficker of children that somebody that was SSP asset actually went back and terminated in the chair. But this person was trafficking in real life. And it was head of a big food distribution network. So, I mean, I know it sounds funny when I say pray over your food if you're Christian, or, if you're just spiritual Reiki at whatever your energy exchanges that you do, because a lot of this stuff, it sounds wacky. I would have probably laughed a few years ago, has a lot of black magic on it, and they're specifically targeting us because they don't want us to wake up.
Yep.
Well, Sasha Stone actually talks about that stuff in his talks on the exposing the different fast food chains and other food distributors on actually using human meat and embryonic abortions. Basically, it's heinous. But he's got some amazing research that he's been bringing out of the UK and coming to the US and talking about. It was really interesting.
I think
it's a real thing.
I think this kind of shows that, we have these control mechanisms, right? And not to discount them as individual issues, but to just, I think, raise our awareness to the fact that, these things have kind of always been going on. The mechanisms of this open air prison that we're living in as a society. But since we are here today collectively in an SSP capacity, I feel that the conversation is almost requires to be held above that. That's almost like national level problems, and SSP stuff I almost feel is above that, because that would be like, I don't see presidential politics as being something that really matters in my world. Things like that.
Sure.
you know, there's always going to be these divisions in our society, these incendiary statements that are meant to drag everybody down in the trenches. But what I want to try to do is I want to try to have the higher level conversation, I guess I'm going to say, to be honest, is that this awakening process, I think, requires us to get out of the melee of the riffraff of the incendiary statements and all the topic points of the day, the bullet points of the mass media, and take a step higher. You know, I know you guys, I haven't spoken to you guys before, but I know you're in the circles that I'm in, and I know you guys are very SSP oriented. So I would almost want to say, like, from that perspective, from the perspective of the SSP view, what do you think all these people should really be paying attention to in the grand scheme of this melee?
Raising vibrations and really focusing on inner work and healing, integrating traumas. Because really, even though all this garbage is going on, the more that I've integrated and have learned how to hold on to 0 point for longer periods of time, I create my matrix. I create my reality. And so it doesn't matter the garbage that's going on. I always have what I need because I'm grateful for it. It's like I can feel it coming to me before I receive that, before I get those opportunities. I know that they're already there and that they're either on their way or they're here already.
Okay. And what do you think, Frank, for folks that are, you know, in the mix of all the divisive tactics being thrown at us? What's something you think they could focus on for improvement?
Well, a lot of the biggest reasons that we're getting hit, and this may be just my opinion, but we're getting hit with all these memories and all these recalls because there's a lot of darkness that's tied in with it. And as much as that can be, a thorn in your side, we need to remember these things. We need to recover these memories so that we can heal from all of these different traumas that we've been through. I mean, there's been other experiencers that have said the same thing, but it holds true, you know. And if we can heal past all of this and really grab onto the whole concept of organic ascension and raise our vibration, raise our awareness, raise ourselves consciously. You know, our consciousness is about the most important thing. And what I've been focusing on myself is to be not just in control of my own actions and everything that I'm doing here and now, you know, in this time and space, but also being in full consciousness of every thought that I have, every single thing that comes across my mind. Is there something in this thought that is going to serve me, or is this just garbage that I need to discard and get something new, something better, something that can help me improve? You know, I get into certain dreams that, you know, have me questioning, you know, my reality at times, and I'm like, okay, well, you know, what can I take from this? You know, and how can I gain control over that consciousness in the dream world, in the dream state, be it the ether or the, you know, the higher dimensional states. You know, we have to have total control of ourselves in all states of mind, in all states of dimension. And once you have that, you can actually start to gain control over your own body. You know, and it's not just like about eating right. I mean, because that's important too. You know, everyone's, you know, knows the whole concept of your body being your temple, and you know that holds true. You know, you got to take care of yourself. I mean, because if you don't, no one else is going to. So, Susan.
Yeah, I was just wondering when you said that about the nutrition part. It really, part of me wonders, like, even the well-intentioned folks nowadays that are trying to eat well, I wonder how far off the mark we are from like what we even know could be proper nutrition and diet. You
I
know,
really love what Veronica said the other night in the show that we were on about eating for your blood type. I actually looked up that book and bought it because
oh,
I'm like,
interesting.
I want to know because I'm A positive.
Mm-hmm.
My mom is O negative, and I have a sister that's A negative. And so it makes me wonder what really are our genotypes in my family because my dad comes from different royal bloodlines, including the Merovingians. And then my mom also, but then she's got the Native American tie-in, and that's where I get a lot of my Native influence. But it's interesting to see that several of us in our family have different blood types. So
I do find that very interesting too. That's a new concept that fired across my bow that I hadn't heard before. This eating for your blood type. That it's logical.
Isn't that cool?
It's logical.
I know. I can't
you
wait
are
for
what
that
you
book
eat.
to get here.
So you might as well.
Right?
I mean, you might want to eat to support what you are. Would make sense as well. What are your guys' thoughts as of the supposed UFO UAP disclosure that we've been getting as of late?
Kind of slow. It could be better.
Low climax value.
I mean, come on, we're getting triangle ships, and it's usually two of them every week to show up and zap us, so we have to send them away. I mean, we wonder who the hell we are and why do we rate two triangle ships,
Yeah, and we're not talking about, just some small, like a dark craft or whatnot. We're talking about, something closer to a TR6 or a TR4, something much larger. Like, I mean, they're sending frigates to come and, send different directed energy weapon attacks towards us. So, this whole UFO UAP disclosure thing, I think it's a freaking joke.
I think so,
in my honest opinion, it's ridiculous because, I mean, I was kicked out of the MUFON Global group on Facebook because I was trying to explain to people that over 90% of all of the UFO UAP sightings are of craft that were made here in our own facilities.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
they can find the patents online, and we've shared them numerous times on Facebook. I know I have, but then people want to say, "Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist." Like, well, I did this research, and you wouldn't even look up the patent, and here I have the link right there for you.
A lot of people really have no idea the technology that's available that we possess. Like you said, Frank, it's ours as well. Like, it doesn't mean there's a lack of UFOs out there from off planet, but we have our own as well, for sure.
Yeah.
I had a gentleman
I'm not saying that, they don't exist or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
There was a gentleman that was on with me recently, Dennis Sant, who was one of the witnesses to the Hudson Valley event. And I hadn't realized until I spoke to him how big the thing was. He was saying it was like a freaking city. It was like Manhattan in the sky, basically. And I hadn't realized that was the case. And, and a lot of folks still think that was one of ours, and it was a huge one of ours.
Wouldn't surprise me. We
Why not?
Really big ships.
In Knockwaffen.
Solar Warden.
Yeah, in Knockwaffen, what?
Too.
Amaria remembers, and I know Susan remembers, that there were, 4-kilometer long ships in Knockwaffen and Kruger? I mean, they were huge.
They're huge.
We had gymnasiums and giant cafeterias in them, and I remember a swimming pool, and,
well, so you guys have memories, so let me pick your brain a little bit if you don't mind, because it's like a curiosity of mine. I've had, I have dreams, memories, recollections, things that I'm trying to put back together, and some of them I can tell, yes, this is absolutely, it's just a dream. There's other things that I know are memories. There's other things that are like kind of in limbo, where I'm like, I'm not really 100% sure on, but this one in particular. It seems to me to be SSP related, but in a way it seems farcical because I can't imagine it being real. But it seems like this massive, like open, cavernous ship that I'm in that is huge, like many stories high in the interior, say maybe 12 floors high in the interior, but then that whole area is wide open, and you can look down, and it's not very well lit, but there is lighting, and it is huge. So it's like it goes so far as to like it looks like it just goes on to infinity, like it's just this big opening that just goes on like forever.
It could be like a hangar bay.
Yeah, it's like it's so far you can't even see it.
Ships, they have room for their flagships to come in and dock.
Okay.
And then there's also like the Saturn space station is really huge like that too, because they have huge beings that the windows are really high. They're kind of a squared or a trapezoid type window that's up in the Saturn space station. But a lot of those places have to be able to accommodate different sizes of beings because, you know, we're not the only size, of course. I mean, you're going to have giants, you're going to have even beings that are so tiny that we would be like, they're like, oh, they're little cute little ants, or, you know, like little fairy type people. And so kind of like reminds me of Gulliver's Travels whenever they show the different sizes of beings. It's
actually funny that you say that, Amaria, because in the dream, as big as this huge space was, right? I was in something else. It wasn't me, because I was apparently huge, because I was very angry and I was ripping up, like I was reaching and I was climbing up. I was something big and I was grabbing each floor like by hand, and I was looking for someone, and I was very mad at someone, and I was tearing through that place to get to someone. And I remember being like, wow, this place is huge. But then all of a sudden I remember being like, well, apparently so am I. But it was just like, well, either way, this is good because I need to get through here fast and find this dude.
That's really cool.
That sounds very Hulk program-esque.
Yeah, I'm like poking Frank on something like Hulk program, because we both remember being in the Hulk program.
It would seem bigger, like bigger. Like, I mean, I'm familiar with who the Hulk is, but yeah, like
different color, yeah.
Like stories high, like not even like, you know. Yeah. Okay.
Well, you never know how big an altar could be.
Yeah, it would almost seem like 30 or 40 feet tall, which is a freaky number in my head to consider.
Well, and we've had sleeves that are opposite sex too. I mean, you could have things that are different creatures that are huge, that are little, that are light beings, like the Lixoldaten, when we're put into our upper energy bodies, or basically who we really are as higher dimensional beings. It's like we're a different energetic vibration, and so it might not even look like, to us right here in 3D, 4D, it would look like an angel or a bright ball of light, or I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah, and to corroborate what you're saying about the ships, that makes total sense. That's not far-fetched at all. There's no way of thinking that that's far-fetched, because I mean, like Amaria said, there is that Saturn station, and it's like, it's honestly near the size of Earth. It's massive. So the entire interior of this thing is just, I can't even say cavernous, because it doesn't even do it justice. It's absolutely just disgustingly enormous. I mean, like, tall beings could go into this space and easily, freely move around. And you're talking, 70, 80 foot tall beings.
Wowzers.
It's not unheard of.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I almost look at a lot of nature on this planet. It seems, if you look at it over long timetables, that we have a propensity toward gigantism. The longer something is around, the bigger it seems to get over its cycle.
And isn't it true that the heavier the gravitational pull our planet has also is part of what makes a being a lot more grandiose or like larger? I mean, that's my understanding. I'm not sure like what you guys think about that, or
from what I'm hearing from folks, it certainly makes them stronger. A denser, a harsher gravity planet seems to make species that are more muscular and strong, it sounds like, from what I'm hearing from everybody. And that we seem to be a pretty gravity-strong planet, actually. And that always makes me wonder. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the story of, what the heck was it? The Princess of Mars series, the John Carter movie.
Yeah.
John Carter
I was just going to mention that.
Right.
That's such an interesting story. A lot of folks don't know that book actually freaked me out when it first crossed my hands, because I wound up getting an original copy of it.
Oh, wow.
And when you open the book up and you read the foreword originally, the author writes it. It's one of the most interesting things because it's written like in the 1800s or something. But the foreword is written and it states it like fact. He says that he didn't write this book. It was given to him. It was a manuscript and all that stuff and blah, blah, blah. And I'm reading this and I'm going, this is the weirdest freaking book ever for the time, the context that it was written. And it really gave me pause. And I'm like, is this guy being straight or not? I mean, straight up.
Absolutely. There are ancient gates and portals that are on different ley lines at different ancient sites. And they literally will take you to different planetoids throughout this entire system. And that's, you know, anybody that's inside of this community, you know, as far as SSP or, you know, sub programs are concerned, they know that. They know that these portals exist, and they also know that there are jump rooms that exist. And the whole concept of being a denser being, that's absolutely true. Because when we were ever on like Ceres, as a, you know, like they took us out of this space time and put us there, or on Mars or any other different planetoid, we were a far denser being, and we could jump leaps and almost seemingly stride across the floor because we could, you know, give ourselves such a heavy push that, you know, the gravity just was like nothing to us.
I can totally follow that logic. I'm a big student of Nikola Tesla, and he would always say things like that. There are places on this planet that are better for the study of energy than other places. And you know, like you have the Wardenclyffe facility on Long Island. Apparently nobody's ever disagreed with him because all they've ever done is energy studies there. That's basically Brookhaven National Lab's property now. But with that being said, following that logic, I have to believe that it mattered somehow that my butt was at 90 degrees south on our planet, the South Pole Station, geographically for a year. That's like a massive energy node to be riding for a year. That had to do something. It means something.
Experience.
But I don't know. Like, you know, what does that do to someone?
Right.
Well, I would think it would be transformative, wouldn't it be? I mean,
to say the least.
Adding,
it seems like it's helped you create an amazing show for yourself, and to be able to, you know, decipher your amazing experiences, so to speak.
It's definitely made me open my eyes to things a bunch. I would say that when I was at South Pole, now that I think about it, as far as energy nodes and ancient wisdom, the term "know thyself" just popped in my head, because it was an environment where I became so intimately familiar with myself, my physical self, and keeping it alive. Like I could feel temperature differences from my front to my back. I mean, that's how the temperature was. If I was walking into the wind, my front would be freezing while my back was sweating. And you would turn and rotate. Like it was, you know, you could hear your blood circulating. You could tell your hydration levels. You just became very intimate with your physical capabilities. So I would say it was a know thyself in that capacity.
Sounds amazing.
Amaria just wants to get there so badly. I can tell. She's
like,
Jones.
I want to experience the energy so much. That's why I still keep looking through all the job ops.
And then the view of the stars really changed my opinion on the cosmos. I mean, I was never opposed to the idea of there being life out there. I mean, it made logical sense to me. In the wintertime, on a crystal clear sky, to look up at the South Pole Station into the stars, there's not a view like it on Earth as far as I'm concerned. But that view really made me have to be like, it's Star Wars out there. I mean, seriously, there's just too much space. There's too much space for us to be the only thing going on. There has to be everything I could imagine going on out there. and everything you guys could imagine going on out there. There's literally that much space out there that everything that every human on the planet could be thinking of, there's room for that to be going on.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think the issue we have here contemporarily is there's too many factions that are just dividing us, that we need to be more of a unified mindset here globally before we can move outwardly effectively, if that makes sense. We're too inefficient as a society. We don't work together well enough. That's the issue.
Well, they did the same thing inside the secret programs. All of these compartmentalized programs are, all different split factions, and they've been, infighting for, at least several decades. So
that's a great point that you guys could give insight on that I only suggest to people, right? Is that when people say like the secret space program, like here, we have the conversation here in the U.S., people are like, oh, the secret space program. They're thinking of the U.S. secret space program. How many people are really thinking about how many secret space programs there are? Each country probably has one. Each really expensive corporation probably has one. It's like, and it's not like each government has one. There's different factions in our own government that have different secret space programs. Do you
off-planet ones too? You think about that.
Do you guys have any insight as to any idea how many different space factions are bickering with each other on this planet?
Ooh.
A dozen, 2 dozen?
At least 8 I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because Nachtwaffen, is some people refer to it as Dark Fleet, but the thing is that there's more than one faction in Nachtwaffen. And then if you want to talk about, Kruger was a corporate thing. They that was owned and operated by Kruger himself. And
Kruger liked the cyborg people.
Yes, they did. And then, you think about everything that was going on inside the Solar Warden projects. I mean, they were all attacking each other in a lot of different ways. In some cases, there were alters that were fighting themselves, basically. Like, different SSP assets were plugged into so many different, avatars or alters as they are, and they were literally actually fighting themselves in some of these factions.
That sounds so perfect. It sounds like government-run stuff, par for the course. It's like when you see the news and you see federal agents in a drug bust arresting other federal agents that were acting as buyers, and they're all shooting at each other and stuff, and they're all on the same team.
It's exactly that.
Yeah. You're under arrest. No, you're under arrest.
Certainly.
Can't we all just get along and get some donuts?
Oh man.
See, and that's perfect proof of how taxpayers' money can be totally misappropriated, and we just don't even know it. I mean, between all the sham drug deals and stuff like that, and then we find out that they're actually running drugs to fund these programs so they can make the spaceship, so they can enslave you to run the drugs, so that you can build the spaceship, so that you can run. It's like, wait, what? Where does this end?
Yeah, and that's just part of it.
When does this end?
I mean, what Rumsfeld, right before the whole 9/11 thing happened, came out and said that there were trillions of dollars missing for the Pentagon.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not making that up. That was substantiated, and then they went ahead and they destroyed most of the evidence.
Yeah.
Because it would oust everything and expose a lot of these programs that exist. And yeah.
That's the cool thing about when you lose $2.3 trillion, it only takes 0.3 of the trillion to cover your trail. So it works out pretty well in the end.
Yeah, agreed.
That's what all the corporations do. Every corporation will sin 6 ways from Sunday, and they'll make $1 trillion, and then they go to court and they're like, "Hey, you did a bad thing. You have $1 billion in penalties." And like, okay. Sorry.
Oh my god.
My bad.
Oh.
Yeah. They don't care.
I think the rest of society, like, they should be upset about these things, you know, because they've all invested. You know, they put all of this tax dollars into, you know, whatever, and it's getting funneled into programs that they have no clue about.
Yep.
And technology that could literally heal the world, I mean, literally overnight, if it was all implemented. And here we are, you know, still fighting with each other over, you know, the cash cow gas guzzlers that we're driving around.
Yep.
And whether or not those versus the hybrids are a better way to go. It's all obsolete.
I'm also a big fan of Buckminster Fuller, and he had this whole idea of efficiency. I mean, for the betterment of man, basically. You know, that if we could get our work done in a more efficient way, we'd have more time to recreate and engage each other intellectually. And that, to me, that seems a better goal of society than trying to figure out how to get more people in the household into the workplace.
Right.
It should be the reverse. That's where the idea had been going way back when. We used to only have one person in the household capable of providing for everyone under their roof. And I would say we've been sold we've been sold down the river to think that that's unattainable, that this is the way of the world right now. This is a sham. This is like you know, the farmers being sold out, and the commodities market and people taking from the producers is what we're really seeing. Is that we had a society of producers that have basically just been raped into a lack of productivity because there's no more motivation to do anything anymore. You don't get a return on your investment. You know, we've been taxed to death, and we've invested our funds and our lives basically, because that's the return on our investment would have been the fruits of our labor. But since we don't get the fruits of our labor, we've given away our lives to people that have taken that investment and run with it. Ran off planet, technically. You know, we've invested in all kinds of things that people can't imagine. You know, we're sitting here talking about electric cars as if that's something amazing. You know, modern technology. We're going to save the world with this newfangled thing called an electric car. Trust me, my name's Elon Musk, and I'm so smart. I'm into rocket science. Anybody hear about rocket science? You know, like this is a total. It's a
trucks.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's get our Hot Wheels out.
Yeah, I mean, it's insanity that people just don't know better anymore. You know, it's they're rebranding the lunar mission as the Mars mission using the same technology. And
it's all a front. You know, if they've got these enormous machines that they have to use these, you know, what is it, 29 or 30 something rockets, you know, attached to the bottom of this thing so that they can actually break the atmosphere. It gives them a whole slew of money funneling as a front so that they could develop all these other really, honestly, it's black budget technologies. I mean, it doesn't cost nearly, we're talking fractions of the amount to produce an anti-gravitic drive system on a freighter that could be large enough to haul 10 of those rockets. I mean, literally. For fractions of the amount.
And there's plenty of folks that have already come out and shown that these budgets exist, these programs exist, these vehicles exist. There's whole entire functioning markets that we're involved with that we're not being told about. It's my understanding, and you guys can probably confirm or deny whatever position you're in, but I've heard that our planet is so bountiful and fruitful with things of value. I've heard that some of the highest valued things in the cosmos would be a mating pair of anything from our planet. It could be 2 dogs, it could be 2 mosquitoes, it could be 2 anything, any mating pair of anything from this planet, you could basically get almost anything you want in return, and thus we are prevented from communicating off-world. Heaven forbid we find out that we could be instantaneously wealthy ourselves by communicating with something off-planet and getting involved with fair exchange.
Well, even
Funny you
just
just
DNA.
mentioned mating pair.
Say that again?
Right.
I said, oh, funny you should mention mating pair, because we remember being captured by what we think were in some kind of insectilian race, and they kept us till I was about 5 months pregnant, and one of the females took pity on me and let us leave, because somehow they got my dragon ship in there, and we fled naked out of there. They kept us like zoo animals.
Yes. Yes.
So there's value there.
The humans are probably the biggest commodity here, because we can create, and we're really good with technology. I know that even Johan has even mentioned it too, that the humans are sought after because we have an excellent means of developing engineering, technology, you name it. And a lot of people, they deny that any of this stuff exists, but there's patents for this stuff. A lot of these things have been declassified just in the last couple of years. I mean, why would they declassify patents for time displacement technologies? A lot of people are like, oh, well, that's just a patent. It's not technology. I hate to tell you this, everybody, but they don't give you a patent for technology on paper that doesn't work.
Exactly.
It doesn't work that way. You won't get a patent pending for something that doesn't function.
And guess what? What is the Patent Act of 1951? The government gets first crack at any patent before you get to make any money off of it. If they can have a military application with it, you're screwed.
And the military doesn't apply for patents when they're making stuff unbeknownst to us. So when the patent shows up from their department, it means they're done with it.
Yeah, they did it 30 or 50 or 70 years earlier.
Yeah, I think, what was it, Ben Rich, the guy that used to run the Lockheed Skunk Works?
Yep.
Right before he died, he basically said something to the effect that anything that you could possibly imagine, we've already done it. Yep. And he was saying this to someone who was in the programs and aware of the crazy things they've already done. So he wasn't even just talking to the average person when he made that statement. He was talking to someone in the know, and he was like, anything you can imagine, we've already done.
Well, and you can see all that, like different technologies bleeding through. For instance, the Borg. If you think about what Musk is doing with these injectable devices that go into your brain that basically take your ability away from actually connecting to source, because we'll just download stuff for you. Let's do it the lazy way. You don't have to learn how to meditate. You don't have to learn how to connect. You don't have to activate anything, but we'll just do it for you. It's just a romanticized garbage that's basically leading people to be okay with the Borg. But then you see how it also ties into nanotech, which goes to 5G, which goes to the jab. Everything's tied in.
I came across some information recently, which I've not corroborated. I just started looking into it. But what they were suggesting was back, I think it was in the late 60s or early 70s, the company Siemens that makes, the electronics equipment, apparently got a contract to make 2 billion of these Neuralink type chips back then. And they were saying the contract was taken, the product was manufactured, they know all that stuff. They said what they don't know is what happened to the chips. So now what the person was suggesting was that this might be one of those switcheroo situations where here we are today going, oh no, we need to be concerned they're going to chip us in the future, as we're all walking around with chips already. Similar to how everybody is running around going, hey, you know what? When the 5G comes on, they're going to weaponize our cell phones. Guess what? They've always been weaponized.
I've already been weaponized.
Right. So it's making me wonder, is this chip thing that same switcheroo? Do we currently have a lot of us, are we already chipped and we're not aware of the process of the farm that we're on?
Well, we know as assets, we've got implants. I mean, many of us have palpated them. I have one in my arm that you can actually feel. It feels like a piece of rice.
Interesting.
Susan,
Yeah.
I know that she's seen some. Didn't she go to the airport and they found some on her as well?
Yeah, Susan actually ended up going to the airport and got scanned about, what was it, 2 years ago?
That was I got scanned going to Texas in August, and then when I went to go meet him, I was fine on the August one, but then when I went to meet him, the PSA lady pulls me aside and she says, "Look at this," and there was metal showing up in each one of my joints, my shoulders, my elbows, my wrists, my ankles, my knees, my hips. And I was like, "Lady, I don't know. I know what this one here is. I have a cervical fusion, and I was
just
tell him.
Tell me. Say, you ever see that movie Wolverine? I'm his mom. That's what you tell him.
Funny you should.
That's what I would have said. Now let me through.
I guess her are actually. They didn't show up in the last set of scans because she actually did another trip, and they did a scan then, and she was actually able to look at it, and they weren't there anymore. So
weird.
I don't know if it. Yeah, but then again, I mean, I even have. I had cut out several of other different implants that I noticed. Like I was able to palpate one on my neck, which was real close to my jugular, and when I noticed it, I was like, "What the heck is this?" Because it was very, very, very hard, very, metallic feeling, and I was like, "This is not normal. This doesn't belong here," and I just thought it was like an ingrown hair or something. So, I thought I could just like squeeze it out and get it clear and just put some alcohol on it and be done with it. But it actually had become more infected and more enraged when this happened, almost like whatever was inside was programmed to like cause these issues. And so I ended up having to cut it out. And there's been even other times when I've had other things that have shown up in the flesh, and I've gotten them out, and I've got pictures of some of these implants, and they're very not just metallic, but sometimes crystalline in like texture. And they're very, very hard, like as if you were to hit them with a hammer or whatever. It in some cases would even dent, like leave a little micro indentation in the hammer.
Nice.
Have you ever had one that when you took it out, it kind of dissolved? Because I had something in my lip. It was around February, and I was going to work, and I noticed it, and it was like this round ball thing that I popped out. I thought maybe it was a pustule, and it was kind of rubbery, like it was hard, almost like a little ball. But then I smashed it, and after a while, whenever it started to dry up, it just kind of cracked and came apart.
Yeah, this happens pretty frequently, where we'll find something new, and we've got a lot of documented stuff, not just implant stuff, but a lot of other different occurrences, like congruences with memory. I mean, not just between Susan and I, but I mean between Amaria and us, and a lot of other assets have sat down in multiple different roundtable discussions, and not even just in private conversation, but also even on different interview platforms, where we in real time were remembering all kinds of different things that literally just they coincide so much that it's almost seamless.
And like even with Veronica, when we went to that N5D conference back in March, when she was talking, I started having recall about dolphin school. I didn't even remember any of it then, but I could see us both there.
Nice. It's nice when connections happen.
Thinking about, because this was last August, around the since today's Lionsgate, this is actually when I had that bleed through. But remember that beastie that we had been fighting, and then I had drawn myself and my battle buddy. And then this was Frank. He was some sort of a creature, almost like a Wolverine type creature, but it was like he was mixed with some sort of reptoid being. And then there was some other assets there. And then Susan
Oh,
was this
yeah.
dragon beast. Yeah, we were fighting one of those squid things, and it was huge. That thing had to be like 30 feet. But like that was Lionsgate last year. That was the vision that I had, or the bleed through. And whenever we had gone to the jump room, there was the the lab coat people. They were injecting us in our neck with something. It might have been like the black goo stuff or whatever. But I remember I went to Simone Altar, and I just felt this rush of power. And it's like you get right into the ego, and I got this energy like, let's go kill something. But it's crazy like how you actually feel when that energy comes in. And we were all it was like this chi type qigong thing that we were making these energy sounds, and when we would make the guttural noise, we would punch, and these light balls would come out of our hands. And this thing in the middle, it started to implode, and it was cracking, and it had like this orangey light that was coming out whenever it exploded. It was so intense, but very interesting. I mean, that was that dream. And this is what was it? Veronica said it was Project Umbrella that this was a part of, but we had like crystals on our foreheads and these breathing apparatuses and wings. Like those of us that were in humanoid form, we looked like angels. I had blue skin.
Yeah. Yes.
Nice.
I can confirm that. Susan and I have also talked about that particular, I guess you can call it an avatar, because they would do a consciousness transfer from us here and now and put us into some kind of other creature that they augmented or created in a laboratory or something. And the one particular avatar that they put me in was very like almost like a lichen wolf-like being.
It looked like what Jamie drew. It looked she did a very good likeness of it, because I remember they called me to calm him down because he got to look at himself in the mirror and he was not happy. I've talked about this before.
He was scary.
And they thought, oh, well, we'll
huge.
get his divine counterpart down here and that'll calm him down. Well, guess what? He was so mad he didn't have to be able to be in a human form again, that he got even madder when he saw me because he was embarrassed,
Yeah, there were white coats flying everywhere.
Flying, and I had the sense of humor of a 10-year-old boy, so go, Frank. Go.
Now, Susan and Frank, it's my understanding, and I apologize because I feel like we all come from different perspectives and we all use different words. But I feel like from my understanding of conversations that I've seen that you two or one of you has some sort of like a reading ability or a power or a skill set. I don't even know the words because everybody uses them differently, but that you guys do stuff. Is that correct? Like, what is it that you do?
Yes. I mean, we are divine counterparts.
Okay.
And this goes back to ancient times. So, I mean, we're talking at least thousands and thousands of years, at least back to Atlantis. I mean, I have memories of things much further back beyond that.
Even like Lyra.
But I mean, just for the sake of conversation, yes, we have natural abilities to bilocate. We have natural abilities to remote view. I mean, these are not something that somebody just came and taught us how to do. We just do it.
Okay.
I mean, my father, when I was growing up, always would call me Space Case because I wouldn't be in the room with everybody else when they were having their conversation or whatever. As a kid, even I would be somewhere else or multiple places else. And
remote viewing.
Yeah, we'd be looking at different times, different places, and this just a natural born ability. And when we were brought into these programs, we were selected based on things of that nature, not just because of like a bloodline or any kind of royal scenario, but because we had these natural born abilities that we didn't have to, be tortured into submission to where we would actually start to exhibit meta abilities like a lot of other experiencers have had. although we did experience that just the same as all of the other assets have, but
technically they don't know you have a skill set until they know you have a skill set, and they could wind up treating you the same way as everybody else until they find out you have a skill set.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of it was just they follow a specific protocol, and everybody that's in these bloodlines, everybody that's been selected for these programs specifically, they just stick them through this scenario where they have to live through all of these different traumas and everything, and it's supposed to, like, I don't know, it's not like we, like, consented to that specific behavior being brought out and us being subjected to those things, but it's supposed to harden us. It's supposed to make us stronger in the overall, and that. So because we had all of these specific abilities, we were selected for the Lixel-Dotton group. So because we were able to actually summon energies.
What was the name of this group, Frank?
The Lixel-Dotton.
Lixel-Dotton. Okay.
They're light soldiers is the English term, and by any other standard, I mean, I guess you could say that that's something more along the lines of what would be considered like a demigod here and now.
Okay.
And remember,
I'm not
like the
glorifying anything.
Marvel, X-Men, the Phoenix. They think like the Phoenix, that's more of your Lixel-Dotton sort of thing, because they can push an aura out that's like this golden light, and they can create fireballs, any kind of weapon they can manifest, a life bubble around them. We can do that. I don't know how we activate that though.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
here
it's
and
like
now.
the energy blast, because I remember a lot of the ones you could do even hot and cold, like coming out of our hands, or even like in the mind, you can cause someone else's body to do things so that you don't even have to touch them. It's just by intention, and boiling or freezing someone's blood, or unfortunately exploding brains or hearts. It's horrible, but
consciousness.
Being is that I don't know
consciousness through telepathy. Yeah, just transferring your consciousness into another person and basically taking control, because it's another one of those abilities. There's
that's
times
why they
when
had those helmets on the guards so that we couldn't hit them.
Yes. Well, they did. They had a lot of the I want to say the
like
corporate
the MPs or
the
whatever
corporate MPs
that they had. They wore these weird black helmets, and the eyes, like, that you couldn't see it all. Like the eyes were impressed into the thing, kind of like Darth Vader, that, to give you that kind of image of the plastic kind of look, but not like Darth Vader at all. The eyes were actually kind of shaped like an alien gray. So I'm wondering if some of these people that are getting supposedly kidnapped by aliens, they aren't getting kidnapped by military members that think that they have psionic abilities, and they're just picking them up with these helmets on because it looks like a black gray.
Certainly, because I mean, a lot of us, we've gone our whole lives thinking that, well, maybe this was just some sort of an extraterrestrial that picked us up or whatever, and we found out that that's just a screen memory. These were all military personnel or somebody. They were human beings, or very seemingly human looking, that picked us up. So I mean, it's not that there weren't extraterrestrial beings involved in some of our experiences. It's just that
they were more on the peripheral, though.
Right.
Goes back to that things are more complex thing again.
Right. Well, and when you connect with someone's eyes, like those of us that have been trained telepathically and the psionic abilities, it's like you can connect with someone to a point that, like Frank is saying, we can put our energy in and make them do things, which I think that's why a lot of us have had so much trauma with even looking in people's eyes most of our lives. Like we're just kind of shy. And the more I've opened up and I really look into people's eyes, it's amazing how much you can see someone's soul and actually really read them, even if you're not trying. And it's like, I try not to do it without, permission, because it's so easy that you just do and you're like, oh, sorry. But it's amazing. The eyes truly are a window to reading everything in somebody's akasha within their soul.
Yeah, I want to say that as far as like here and now, like some of the things that we're capable of here and now, I mean, we do bilocation here and now. This has been confirmed on several different occasions by a handful of different people. And, I mean, not only are we telepathic, telekinetic in some ways. I mean, we need to exercise that muscle quite a bit more, because it's something that it's more like riding a bike. You know, you don't forget how to do it, but you know, you're not going to be a BMX champion, you know, overnight. I mean, you have to actually get in there and flex that muscle and exercise and practice it. I mean, Susan and I we telepathed the other day, and it was amazing because inside of less than 2 seconds worth of a telepathic connection, we had probably what would constitute about 45 minutes worth of a conversation, because it was just like that. We connected up, and she's like, "Oh, well, were you thinking this?" And I was like, "Yeah, but I was also thinking all these other things at the same time." And she's like, "Yeah, well, I got this and I got that, and I think it was pancakes."
Yeah, I was cooking pancakes and bacon for dinner, and he really loves pancakes. I was making breakfast for dinner, and I could hear 5-year-old Frank come in. "Oh yay, pancakes for dinner!" You know, that's what I heard in the telepath. But you know, he likes to chatter a lot more. So.
Yeah, it goes pretty deep.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's interesting, Susan, that you say you see the child side of Frank. I'm noticing, and I don't even know, like, I don't want to assume things with my boyfriend, but I noticed lately whenever he's excited, I see that little boy and I'm like, I know him. It's like when I associate or I have memories or like, you know, because we're connecting, it's like I see him as that little boy. And that's really interesting because that's what keeps coming through right now. So I'm almost wondering if we do have more of a I guess, paranormal connection. It's really interesting.
I think there's the paranormal connection, and I also wonder with dissociates. I also feel that we're more like chapters of a book. We're still a book, like we still are complete, but we can be very specific to a chapter. You know, we can be our 5-year-old for a little bit, very specifically. You know, we have the capacity.
Absolutely. I mean, Susan and I, we go back and forth. It's strange. Like we'll be sitting and hanging out and just, you know, conversing amongst one another, or during any given point in time, we'll look at each other and, you know, we'll see, you know, not just a 5-year-old self, but like maybe a 17-year-old self, or, you know, a 27-year-old self, or a 32-year-old self. I mean, it fluctuates from time to time. We jump around so much. It's like, well, I mean, Susan can even remember looking at me and seeing me as a much older man, you know, much older than I am now. So it's almost like we're seeing one another without time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we're also seeing, I don't know if there's contracts or timelines have collapsed, but it seems like I'm seeing all of those simultaneously. So we have at least, we're at 12 plus contracts. And so I have all these versions of Frank, you know. And when we first met in the here and now, because we think like physically we'd been separated for 20 years in the here and now, we're just trying to figure out stuff by
time frame.
Yeah. It's really
deep. I follow that. Yes. It's fun trying to figure out the timelines.
Well, I mean, she'll come up with a certain memory or whatever, and she'll be like, "Oh, was your hair like this at this specific point in time?" Because, you know, there's only this is the weird thing about this is that these are particular details about my life that somebody that lived well over 1,000 miles away from me for what perceivably my entire life wouldn't know any of these details about me.
Yeah, why do I have a blonde version of Frank in my mind, but like an older blonde version, like teenager, early 20s, but he usually always had dark hair. And shoot, that's when we went to his mom's house. I saw that picture of him as a teenager and he had dark hair. I was like, oh my God, this has been going on so much longer than I initially thought, because I thought they'd only taken us as adults and put us together. But we've been working together since we were teenagers. But we've since remembered, meeting when we were much younger in the programs.
Yes, absolutely. Very young.
I have to ask, because there's no shame in my game, and we're new to this and learning the terms and stuff. And I guess it's almost like a two-part question. Some folks in the programs have some recollections of me. I was wondering, A, do you guys have any recollections of me in the programs at all? And then B, is there anything in your toolkit by what you guys can do? Is there anything that you can do to help me connect my dots? And no is an acceptable answer. So don't feel forced to do anything that you don't want to do. I'm just obliged to ask.
Well, I mean, when I first saw your face, I'm trying to remember exactly when I actually did first see you, and it was probably on Facebook at some point in time. But I was like, I know this guy, and then I heard you do a podcast at some point, and I was like, okay, I remember this guy's voice, and I remember his energy. And that's the one thing that stands out the most for.
That's what Amaria says. She says she doesn't remember my face, but she says it's a feeling.
Yeah, and then I'm like, he's got that Long Island accent, going on. I'm like, that kept throwing me. I'm like, do I remember him from Montauk? Because I remember hearing that accent there a lot.
The funny thing is my accent's gone compared to what it used to be, which is really funny. That's the funny thing. When I go home, people look at me like I talk funny now.
I used to work with a guy who would hide his Long Island accent till he was drinking. Then you could tell he was black because his Long Island accent would come out. I was like, dude, I didn't know you were from Long Island. Why do you hide your accent?
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to hide.
It's fascinating.
I mean, I'm
because,
sure we'll play.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I think it's fascinating because just like, Susan's saying, like with the accent and the voice, it almost sounds comforting. Like it's family, homey. Whenever I've heard your voice, it almost feels like even that we could have worked together in some sort of lab setting is what it just feels like that to me. Just like we did something scientific together, or we did some, like I said, some sort of a lab setting, but your voice is just very home-based feeling, which is interesting. So I grew up in the South.
My mother's side of the family is from the South, actually. So,
oh wow, which part?
Florida.
Okay, so I grew up. I was born in Fort Sam Houston, Texas, and then back and forth in Arkansas. Because my grandparents lived near Little Rock, Arkansas, in a town called Cabot. My other grandparents over in near Price in a city called Provo, or excuse me, not Provo, but Elmo, and it was just a little bit over the mountain from Salt Lake, Provo area. But it's just funny that even though we'd lived in Kansas and Texas and Missouri and like Salt Lake and everything, it's like always this Eastern accent, like Long Island, just for some reason just felt like home.
I wonder if it's a Montauk thing.
I'm wondering because like I don't even know how long we were in Montauk, those of us that were, because the time displacement, it could be lifetimes, it could be cycles of lifetimes, it could be as short as a day or a few hours. I mean, who knows? I mean, I remember like with Susan, she would sing Disney songs, and I remember like I would have my head in her lap. She was like several years older than me. Like I would be like 5 or so, and she'd be like, I don't know, between 7 and 12. And I just always remember she would just kind of take the hair around my ear like this. And then somewhere over the rainbow. That was just always a huge song for me. And whenever we connected, and I was really feeling that energy of that song, it's just, I was so emotional. And those pictures you sent, Susan, of whenever you were a teenager, remember, we were just bawling. it was just like this connection of, oh my God, I found my sister. She was like a mom to me in those
Frank's
times.
getting chills because I was they listened to everything we said, but I could sing in code to the kids, and I was telling her, meet me over the rainbow, because there was this interdimensional place I would go. That it was either Ireland or it looked like Ireland, and I made this place, and we would go fly over the green fields and everything, and just go there, and it was our place, kind of like a Peter Pan sort of thing, where we would just go to this special place that only kids could go and no evil people were allowed. And that's where I was telling them to meet me, because somehow I figured out how to go interdimensional before the chair, and that's where I would go. And then Frank and I also had another place where just Frank and I would go.
Yeah, I recalled it at a very young age, and I'd been going there my entire life. And when we reconnected here and now, we actually had this conversation about this particular cave place that we had, and it like we were falling apart when we were talking about it, because it was like, oh my God, this is a real place. This is a, you know, whether it's an interdimensional place or not, it's the place that we both know of, a place that we both recall. So
do you remember a place
with your tie into this? I mean, it very well could be the Montauk project.
Do you remember a place that was like a big field that had a tree in it, like a big tree, and there was like a pond or a lake next to it and mountains in the background? Do you guys remember that?
That one I don't.
Sometimes it would be like golden, like wheat, and sometimes it would be like grassy, really green.
I used to draw a picture of that, actually.
Wow.
Like a lot of what you're describing specifically.
Trees like mushrooms. They were so tall. They were like trees.
That'd be cool.
Yes, very, very large.
It's like a place that I would go whenever I was feeling traumatized.
It could be the Montauk project that we remember you from, Eric. It could.
Oh, I definitely think I have Montauk affiliations for sure. There's I have some cage. I have a multitude of cage recollections, and I bounced some of those off of Penny at one point and drew some pictures and things like that, and she was like, "Oh yeah, that's the cage I remember too," and that was the more substantial one that I drew the picture of. But yeah, the Montauk stuff with the shocking and all that stuff, that's to me the MK Ultra, the Montauk. Like, I mean, it's hard for me because I don't. That stuff is kind of in a sea of memories, like it's all together. I can't really pull things apart for specificity and say this was that and this was that and this was like just like no, it just I have this little section in my brain of what sucked a lot. Is the way I just categorize. Like, here's a whole area of shit that sucked.
Oh man.
That I'm still figuring out what it was connected to. You know.
Yeah, I mean, some of these memories that we have that are locked away in our subconscious, they are locked there by either like a chemical action. In some cases, it has to do with like the electrochemical thing that they did to like blank slate us. And in some cases, there was a Royal Draco would come in, and they would basically modify your memories and try to compartmentalize it in a certain way. And in any case, what they would do is they would lock them away in like basically like substations in your mind, and they would attach different other programs over them to not only just give you a screen memory to cover up what's really there, but also to implement what's called the Omega programming. And the Omega programming is designed to basically take you over and make you want to be completely suicidal when you actually access these memories. So you're like in a self-destruct, basically. So a lot of us have gone through a lot of that. We've accessed a lot of these memories, some of us early on without even realizing we did it. which is why I think Susan and I have actually integrated a lot more of what everyone refers to as altars. Mm-hmm. It is because we've been doing this our entire lives and re-implementing these different aspects of ourselves, and basically making them rejoin our consciousness.
I have to imagine there's great benefit to having such. Process. I have to imagine there's great benefit to having such a peer right next to you. I mean, you guys are such on par peers of each other. That has to be so beneficial to have the understanding. There's so many folks that don't have a partner that is as understanding, so it winds up adding more challenges to their life. You guys are lucky.
Well,
like luckily I had kept things that I didn't know what I needed for it, like an extra phone. Somehow I never had to return that and still got my credit for it, which Frank ended up needing. And shoot, that's going to give me a brain fart.
Yeah, she had a lot of things that were prepared.
Oh, the contract breakers. Mm-hmm. Doesn't want me to say. I had saved 2 contract breakers that break contracts, any spiritual things with harvesting your DNA, all sorts of things. Mm-hmm. Shoot, and now the screen just flashed. I kept looking down because I saw it flash a red light too earlier. But when we were doing that, we were reading them aloud, and we did both of them. We were actually stuttering and stumbling over words because there's a lot of black magic they put on us when they put altars. So apparently me raking my food and calling all my soul shards back to me each time I do that, I was already integrating things. And then I'd done a couple contract breakers, but even when I did the one with Frank, I was having trouble. So you should probably do those every several months, because I don't know if we have timelines or integrating. So maybe when it integrates, you have to redo a contract breaker to make sure you broke the contract of that timeline, because we consent to most all of this. I don't think I consented to any of this because I feel like our souls have been trapped in this soul trap for thousands of years.
Yeah, we've had this conversation with multiple other assets that have said the same thing, that we're prisoners of war. That this whole matrix, or whatever you want to call it, is basically a prison system, more or less. I mean, that's not even a mystery anymore for a lot of people. I mean, heck, the CIA and the Pentagon just released they declassified that this is all just a hologram. And I don't want everybody to think that just because Susan and I have we've got peers right next to each other here, that and I'm grateful to have a support system, but we also triggered a lot of very dark memories in one another. I mean, when we reconnected, we found a lot of different things that we triggered in one another that, I mean, I don't wish these memories on anybody. I don't want anybody to recall some of the dark stuff.
Totally understood. There's pros and cons to everything. I didn't want to paint it like it's a bowl of cherries. But I mean, there are pros to it. I mean, I get there's cons too, for sure. Because I can imagine it could also be very challenging as well, like you said, to have the triggers firing all the time, and the proximity. I mean, because everybody has their good days and their bad days as well. So I could also imagine that if it syncs up to where you're both having bad days on the same day, it can get real interesting.
Luckily, that doesn't usually happen, because the bad thing is we can feel each other's pain. I'll be like, oh my God, is that my migraine or yours? And then he'll be like, oh my God, babe, I'm so sorry. Your hip hurts that bad. I'm like, yeah, babe, it does. Sometimes I just wish I would wake up, or feels like it has knives in it. It's like, oh my God. I'll go back and forth like that. And it's like, come on, let me work on you. Do some energy work, Frank, because your migraine's killing me. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's really hard to cut those cords, because you can really feel their pain. If they're going through it, you can feel it. And sometimes you just have to go through something just to work through it. And I can't really do anything but stand back and just watch him and be like, here, you need a glass of water, some energy work. I don't know. Pray for you.
It is challenging because
I'm a
we're
plumber.
both intuitive math.
I love the benefit of good water.
Yeah, definitely.
And then he's like, I can't tell you this memory. It'll devastate you. And I'm looking at him like, you don't think I already just saw what you just saw? Because I did. I've seen this memory my whole life, and I was hoping it wasn't true, but I just told you it was. So, yeah. And, yeah, actually, that one was a peripheral where there was some Dracos involved, too, that I remember. But most of this military stuff doesn't even involve any aliens. Not really that I remember. They were all in the first.
Just out of curiosity's sake, out of the three of you, have you how do I put this? In your here and now experiences, have you witnessed what we would collectively call UFOs or aliens?
Yes.
Okay.
UFOs, yeah, I think there are. Aliens, I saw one. Well, sometimes they're guides. I don't know if you, depending on your religion, you could call them angels, but they're blue. I never thought angels were blue because there's an Arcturian, a Syrian, and I saw somebody else's guide that was a lion being. I've seen all kinds of beings because I do energy work around people that are their guides, and I've never seen anything that looks like some of these beings.
I was at an event one time, and someone came to me and handed me a book that they told they were instructed to deliver to me, and they told me they were an alien from another planet. It looked like a human to me, but they told me that they were not. They told me they were from, I think they said Sirius. And they told me it was a woman. She was grinning ear to ear. It was one of the happiest faces I've ever seen in my life. And she was so happy. I didn't understand why this person was so happy, but she was so happy. And she had this book for me, and she informed me that, she just wanted me to have this book, and that's it, and wished me the best of luck. She wanted to give me some, blessing, so to say. She asked if it was all right, if she can give me this blessing. And she proceeded to, touch my head somehow. And I would say it was speaking in tongues, but it certainly wasn't a language that I understood. She gave me her blessing. I took the book, and she walked away smiling. And it was a great book.
I had a similar experience with the language thing. Whenever it was a star lady or interdimensional, I don't know what she was, visited me in 2017. It was July 4th or 8th or somewhere in there. But yeah, I could hear this language being translated to English. And then I got scared because I realized, oh crap, someone's in my room. And when I got scared, I felt her grab onto me because she was scared. And then when I flipped my body, it scared her even more because I had learned how to control my body being frozen all my life during my sleep, and then saw her. I had a couple encounters with her. There was an old man that appeared to have some sort of really bad shaking problem. But then when he would approach and he talked with me, the first time he had my grandpa's voice, a Southern Arkansas voice. And all of a sudden the shaking stopped. We had a conversation, and I watched him as he went because there was this love to him. He disappeared. And then I saw him again a few months later, totally different voice, wasn't shaking, still had his cane, and talked with me, and then walked off and disappeared. There's a time traveler man that I've drawn, that I've seen twice, and my friend, I'm not going to mention his name, saw him a couple of months ago at the Tetons when he was hiking, and he told me, it's like, oh my God, I saw the time traveler, and it's the same one that you drew. And then just other beings where you just know there's something different about them, and it's like they can tell that you know something because they just always kind of just smile at you like, I know, and you get these impressions in your head. But I've never felt intimidated by any of them. They are all very loving that I've been encountered with.
Yeah, I haven't had a negative experience yet.
Well, and then in Shasta, when I was there, I did see the Sasquatch. After I did, there was a meditation that I did. I was doing a bunch of clearing, and I passed through a portal. it kind of reminded me of like when you see a mirage out in the desert and you see that kind of wavy looking heat signature. It kind of looked like that. I was walking and I'm kind of looking like, what in the world? And I just went ahead, and because Spirit was saying, come through. And it almost felt like I died and came back. But the way that my friend had talked, because we had both went up together doing this spiritual journey for solstice, he was like, it's like you were the phoenix coming out of the ashes. You metamorphosized. And there's just this huge change that was happening. And I really hadn't talked about it, except for recently. I've talked to a few people about my experience, excuse me, on Mount Shasta. I actually there was a fairy that I saw, and usually they're glowing, but this is what I saw with this little being. It was probably a couple inches tall, and it wasn't glowing this time. But my friend Joe, when he saw my face, he said, you're glowing, you're turning blue and purple. Oh my God. And so I'm wondering at that time if I was vibrating at 5D, because all of the beings that I saw, these little fairy people, they weren't glowing. They just like looked like you or me. I mean, it was black. The wings were clear like a cicada. And then it was kind of this fuzzy looking little body or tunic type thing. And it just had a very loving, gentle energy as it came by. And it just was a few feet from me. And I had two people on either side of me talking. And I'm like, do you guys see this? What are you talking about? And I'm like, there's a little fairy thing right here. And they're looking around like, what? And then there was a flash of an orb that happened. I mean, just beautiful energies. It was very almost like a rebirth or a resurrection, interestingly enough, that I had gone through.
I'd only just recently come across the idea, and I love it. I grew up thinking that Bigfoot was like this missing link Neanderthal thing in the woods, and it was like, a gorilla, so to say. Like it had no brains and was just, hard to find. And that didn't really interest me at all. All right, whatever. The thing probably is out there. Who knows? What do I know? It didn't draw my radar.
I saw it.
But now,
it was actually about the color of Susan's hair. It was kind of a reddish, brownish color.
Now I've only recently heard people talking about that they're not these Neanderthal creatures, that they're more like these portal jumping space geniuses, which is way more interesting to me of a conversation. That's like, whoa, what's going on here? What?
The energy, loving energy.
They're far more intelligent than a lot of people lead on.
Yeah, I had no idea that was the direction people were going until recently.
The connection that the Sasquatch just gave, like I put my hand on my heart and reached out just in, I love you. I'm here in peace. I'm just here to learn and to integrate. And it just, I could feel it saying, I love you. And it did the same. It put its hand on its heart and reached out. And it just, that connection was so beautiful, so peaceful that, wow. I mean, if anyone has the opportunity to connect to, interdimensional beings like that, just know when you go in that energy of peace and of, I'm here to serve you. I'm here to serve Mama Gaia. Thank you so much for protecting us. Even do a Cree offering. And what that is, make a feast of beautiful food, fruits and vegetables and things that are organic. They love even cinnamon rolls. They got to be organic though. They don't like stuff with chemicals. You put it at a base of a tree on a plate, and then just put your intention out there to thank the interdimensional beings for protecting us. And when I did my Cree offering and went back the next day, the plate had dahlia petals on it. It was so cool. Just like it was saying, thank you.
Like a trade. That's cool.
It was really cool.
I have to see if there's more Sasquatch sightings up here in Alaska by me, and find out if there's any areas that are prone to activity. Because there's certainly plenty of places to look around here.
I'll have to find it, but there's a guy that's got a webcast. He's in British Columbia, and he actually shows different Sasquatch sightings. He shows different paranormal things, like with portals or possible abduction scenarios where people have turned up missing, or maybe their bodies have been found later within unexpected places. Like, how could this person have been at this place? in the manner that they were found. But he's got a really cool, like I said, I'll look it up and see, and I'll find it. It's really fascinating what he's doing on his research.
Yeah, there's all kinds of weird stories like that. I've heard stories of, like, you know, where a kid goes missing, a family's doing, like, you know, a camping trip or something, and a kid goes missing in the woods, and then all of a sudden, like 8 months later, the kid comes out. And it's like, what the hell? Like, how does that even happen? You know, it's like a 6-year-old kid just comes walking out of the woods 8 months later, like, here I am. Yeah, there's got to be a portal or something going on there. I'm not sure, but
that was David Paulides. He is the former sheriff out somewhere, I think, and it's he calls it the 411 series, and he's the one that writes about. He had a lot of problems getting his Freedom from Information Act releases just to find out how these people are missing. And about the investigations, they didn't even want to give him that much information. And there's so much going on around the federal parks. I would avoid them with my family if I were you.
There's so many missing people on this planet. I mean, federal parks included. This is one of the conversations that John Warner and I have had, because he's intrigued by it, and he's, you know, studying the history of the battlefield aspect of missing people, and how, you know, these platoons would go out at night and they'd be 1,000 men strong, and all of a sudden they come home and there's 200 missing, but they didn't even have contact. And they're like, where did 200 guys go?
Yeah.
You know? So it's wild to no end.
Well, remember the original Super Soldier movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme? That's where they were taking him. It was right off the battlefields in Vietnam when they were experimenting with them.
Which movie was this? Was it called Super Soldier with Van Damme in it?
The Universal Soldier,
the original one
series that they did.
I have not seen that in a really long time. Probably like when it first came out on VHS, I probably saw it.
Yeah, I had to go back and watch it last year because I thought, you know what? I didn't have all this knowledge then. I just assumed the military was doing that because I thought they were. And then now I know why I thought they were.
And then they had the injections. They were giving those soldiers injections for like a muscle enhancement, and it was a black substance. And if anybody inside of this
and there's regen
community,
tanks, the blue and green liquid in the
Oh,
background.
wow.
Go back and look at it.
Yeah.
Know what you know
I
now.
gotta go watch
And
that.
all the Super Soldier disclosure was right there. And like, what was that? 1980.
Take a look at this. So what I have right here on my back shelf, I'll bring up. I have two of these. They're bookends. I worked at a place called Spy Island, Alaska, and it's a remote oil field. And this is what they gave us as bookends, and you can see what's injected underneath there.
Black goo.
Oh.
Wow.
They call it first oil from January 2011. There's a tube of it inside of there.
Oh, boy.
Probably sentient goo. Don't drink that. You don't know what's going to come out.
I love this because you're probably right. It is, and I have it captured.
You know, I'm wondering, like, with that Universal Soldier thing, remember the movie that recently came out in the past couple of years, Bloodshot? Did you guys see that one?
Oh, that was so
I think that
great.
would probably be an updated version of that. They were having the jump chairs, the black goo, putting it in, taking it out of him, how he, like, blew apart and then came back together. I mean, that's like nanotech stuff, big time. That would be like, isn't that like the Borg technology, like the people that are super Borgs, super soldiers that are like super advanced? That's kind of like, what do you call it? The silver from the Terminator, the guy that comes back together. That's like the silvery liquid metal guy.
It's all tied in with the same thing. It's all a very, very similar disclosure where they're talking about a black goo, which is basically a sentient substance that is capable of morphing itself into any type of shape or form, or I mean, yes,
Yeah, but in Kruger, they would put those cyborg pieces on us. They didn't just snap in like they did in Bloodspot or Bloodshot.
Right.
They didn't just snap on, and they were like
snap on. It's
they were like
into that guy's spine.
Screaming while they're screwing this stuff into your pelvis, and they're like, "Fuck you! You'll forget about this when you come to." And why do I remember it now? You know, because I remember screaming while they were drilling that stuff into me, and I still have pain there.
This is all basically military labs. So,
yeah, Misha Johnson was saying, if you don't have altars, how did they get you to kill people in groups? And I said, just like that movie, they're telling him they killed his spouse. Well, yeah, just tell me they killed Frank, or tell me that they're a bunch of pedophiles or children. I'll go kill them all. You know?
Well, and that reminds me, whenever I was integrating Simone, my Delta assassin, I had the recall because I asked to find the root, and I don't even know what dumb it was in, but I was seeing the two-way mirror thing, and somebody in a chair, duct taped to the chair with like a pillowcase over their head, duct taped around their neck, and I knew who it was. And they were like, take out the asset, or, take out the target. And I was just like, no. And I'm screaming and cussing at them. And they've got there was some grays, there were people in lab coats, and then the soldiers. And they kept telling me,
I know who this is. I bet you're glad you shot him now.
Oh God. Well, they kept waterboarding me, and they would pull me up out of the water and be like, take out the asset, take out the asset. And then I finally was like, no. And I went to take out the guy, and they injected me, and it was like all of a sudden my soul went to a back seat, something took over, and I killed the guy. And as soon as I saw what happened, like my soul took back over. I was enraged, and it's like Frank says, like bodies are going dead. I was slinging people, they were dying, and I was like taking off trying to help my friend that I had just killed, but trying to resuscitate. And so the way that I had integrated that is I went back into that dream, rewinded, and it's right before they injected me. I jumped out, took his soul, put him back, and protected him at that point. But holy cow, I realized they knocked me out, locked me in that trauma, so that whenever I was revived later on, you still have that trauma and you just feel helpless. And then they're like, take out the asset. And you're just like, all right, fuck it, whatever. I can't do anything anyway. You just give up because you don't feel like there's anything else you can do. So you just kind of succumb. And then whatever they're injecting, it's almost like a drug. And you're getting off on that energy, which is horrible. That they would be tying in our beautiful Kundalini rod and staff energy, that sexual energy, to do that to people. But it's insane what they do to get those triggers to get you to turn to that dark side.
For sure.
Yeah, and they did do that. That was part of what they called like a training operation, where we were just children. They brought us in and they wanted to see, just how ruthless they can make us be if we needed to be. And I recalled this specific scenario very similar to what Amaria is saying, that they would bring you into this room where there's this guy that's either taped to the chair, or he's just like, sometimes it's a guy, sometimes it's a girl. It's really dependent upon certain individuals' experience. But in my personal experience, it was this guy was in this chair, and there was this military officer. I can imagine he was, an admiral or a general or something of that nature, because he was very well decorated. And there was a pistol on the table, and it had one round in it. And basically, they expected you to chamber the round, shoot the guy, chamber the next round that was sitting on the table next to the pistol, and then basically await for the next order. And the first time I didn't do it, and the second time I didn't do it, they expected me to do it a third time, because after each time we failed, they'd just go ahead and put one in the back of our head. Well, upon that third occasion, I had realized these guys already have they've got the technology to bring me back, that means that they got the technology to bring this guy in his chair back. So this is a test. This is just a test. I'm not really actually killing anybody. This guy's gonna wake up in the same tank that I woke up in, 20 or 30 hours from now. So I did just that. I went ahead and I don't think that the officer that was in the room was paying any attention specifically. He was more focused on what I was doing with the gun once I had it in my hand, but I had already put the other round in the clip, and as soon as I emptied that round into the guy's head in the chair, I turned and shot the officer as well. And then I disarmed the officer and took his gun, and I shot the door handle that was locked and let myself out into the hallway, and I was ready to start taking out the next set of people that were going to get in my way. And at that point, the other officers were like, "Whoa, you passed! You passed! That was the test. You got it! You got it!" And I'm like, "Mother effers! Yeah, I'm ready to take this out. I'm done with this." So, yeah, it's a very, very similar experience for sure.
Wowzers! It's making me think.
And I found out that 30 or so hours later that same officer had gotten up or whatever, and he met me later on, and he was pretty upset about the scenario.
I bet that has some paperwork behind it.
It's making me think there's a music video by the singer Rihanna, and the song is called Russian Roulette. And the original video, I highly suggest you watch it. It is extremely
very triggering.
It's very triggering, and it's par for the course of what you guys are saying. It's MK Ultra, like kill training in the video. It's all it boils down to is like kill commands and training to be cool with death as an order.
Yeah, a lot of us actually retaliated against a lot of our orders because we didn't approve of what they were having us do. Susan and I ended up being like emissaries. We were going from planet to planet, and we were basically making friends with different groups, different sentient life on these planets, and then they were using that as a point of infiltration. And we didn't realize that that's what they were doing. We didn't realize that was what they were doing, and then when we found out that they were going in and just destroying these people that we just made friends with, and we were like, this is not okay. That's totally not cool at all. So, I mean, we all had a lot of problems following orders. That was kind of the common run of the mill for everybody that met the old man on Mars, is that every single one of us didn't follow orders very well. So
that seems to be a common theme in my past as well. And I very much align to the idea of when I was in these programs as a kid, I absolutely know I was not blindly following. Like, I could be programmed. I mean, they'll get you eventually, but it was certainly it wasn't through me acquiescing through the process. I was definitely resisting, and I remember that being problematic. I mean, in my here and now as a kid, my family that was, old school German Stoic Catholic school, like, I was referred to as a habitual line stepper. So it was, I think it carried over into the programs as well. And my recollection of being in the programs as a kid was that I was livid. I was absolutely livid with lack of control. That made me irate to have somebody trying to be that overbearing, to take the choice away, to, it gets me mad today. I hate watching someone overbearing against an underdog. I'm the champion of the underdog every time because I hate seeing that application of power. It just drives me nuts. So as a kid, I experienced it, and I think it's so wrong. like Penny said before, there's a lot of adults that these programs can use. They don't need to be screwing with kids,
Right.
So that's kind of where I come in contemporarily. It's just like, it's one thing for a consenting adult to get involved with a nefarious program. It's another thing for a nefarious program just to be tapping kids and ignorant parents.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I recently found out the facility that I would go to as a child when my grammar school would take us off property to what they would call, a religious retreat. It was much less religious and retreatful as it was presented. But I had found out the difficulty of me relocating the facility because I found out it got knocked down in 2013. So it was like, oh, that's why I can't find the damn thing anymore. But now that I'm aware of that, I can find the pictures and I'm tracking the location. And it's, it's amazing what happens to children under false pretenses in the hands of billionaires. People just, they think that somebody puts together an organization and the organization says it's to help children. Really? Because they couldn't be lying?
Right.
Right. Yeah. Because billionaire corporations would have nothing to, benefit from.
It's not possible that, your average human being, you put effort in and you accomplish things in life. People fail to realize that pedophiles can actually accumulate billions of dollars too. And guess what their intentions are?
Yeah.
But that's what a lot of these programs feed off of is parents that are ignorant and broke, and billionaires that are happy to help and ready to invest.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
you nailed it.
We see that in the secret space programs. I think it's rampant that we can see these intermingling of the factions.
Well, I think even preying on parents, with my parents being both of them Army officers and physicians, my dad, being told, and my mom that, oh, well, your daughter has these learning problems, and if we put her in these special programs, they'll help her. Mm-hmm. And of course, since you're a physician, you can always, follow along and follow her progress. And, where you're a doctor, it's okay, just relax. We'll guide you through it. And it seems like that, just like my dad was a part of it. And whenever there was something wrong with me, he would assign a drug like Effexor or Paxil. And I'm like, wait, those are antipsychotics. And you're treating me for back pain, but wait a minute, how come you're giving me well, you've got some schizophrenia. And I'm like, no, I don't. The stuff that I've gone through, Dad. I mean, if I was really schizophrenic, then how is it that I've been able to hold jobs down or function or, and my children growing up, they were such a gift to me because when they were little, they would tell me about the beings that they were seeing, that I was seeing too. And I'm like, okay, Paxil's in the garbage. The Effexor's in the garbage. Well, that's when I started chucking the drugs and started to wean off of those things. Because I'm like, my kids are innocent. This is 3 and 4 year olds telling me and seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. And now thinking about even them chasing their brother Joseph, portal jumping. And I'm like, oh my God, I remember seeing that. And the boys were chasing him in the house, we're playing hide and seek. And I'm like, what's going on? But I just thought at the time it was, angels, or because I had miscarriages. But now knowing, that they can take our children and under contract in these other programs, unfortunately, who knows where they are and who knows how many we have. I mean, those of us that have been in those breeding programs and in those genetics programs that remember those things. I mean, I know I've got a lot of children, but how many?
This is one of the crazy things about the complexity of things that I think will blow people's minds when they start to realize how outside of the bounds of their common thinking reality is functioning at. Like we were saying earlier, we're talking missing children, mating pairs, intergalactic commerce, bringing it back to that. What would people really do if they realized that they could have a rabbit pen in the backyard, sell mating pairs of rabbits to off-world species for technologies and things that would blow their mind. And they could do that all day long. Apparently that's a reality, that the mating pair of rabbits would be worth a spaceship. And then, boy, what do you do when you have a spaceship? Well, you go move your rabbits around the cosmos now. Now you're in business. But apparently somebody else has already cornered the market on that. That's why we're out. It's just that simple. Like, people want to think of it as being, you know, more it's business. Somebody else came out with anti-gravity. Somebody else came out with a way to communicate with off-world species. Somebody else is not letting you in on that. It's like George Carlin said, it's a big effing club and you're not in it. It's that, you know, it's the off-world club. You're not in it. You're in the on-world club because you don't have anti-gravity. You don't have a comms device to speak off-world. So guess what? You're a consumer. And you will suffer the consumerism of the management of that exchange until such time we realize that exchange exists and we, the people, take the power back for the systems that we invested in, manufactured, but we're just on the shit end of the stick.
I couldn't agree more. That's so spot on.
Yeah, it's like
really
enough already with the shenanigans. Like, and everybody's like, oh well, you know, we have to keep it on the down low because, you know, everyone will freak out. That's a lie. That's misinformation. That's a suggestion. That's leading the witness. We can't tell you because you'll freak out, which means what? Everyone will freak out when you tell us? No, everyone's going to be fine. I think that's one of the many powers of humanity is our adaptability, right?
Yeah,
on an individual level, one of us might freak out, right? One of us, as an individual, you drop an alien right in my room right now, I'm going to go, I might freak out, right? But as a whole, it'll go through us. It's like we have this absorption in mass. You know, you put a spaceship flies over us. Initially, all the individuals will go, oh my God. But then like 2 breaths later, we'll all go, well, that makes sense. And we'll all discuss it and we'll adapt. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
You know,
wasn't there a poll that they took just recently about, you know, how people would be willing to accept an extraterrestrial reality, and it was like something like 80% of the whole population that actually took the poll, like they wouldn't have cared one way or another. Like, it wouldn't have made any difference to them if they actually were to disclose that there were extraterrestrials and that they've been visiting us for thousands of years.
Since the government likes to subsidize people and pay everybody off to get everybody to calm down, just tell everybody that everything's the way that it is and just issue everybody a lightsaber and we'll all be happy. That's all everybody wants. The truth of the matter is that's all they want.
Keep everybody in a state of fear so that they can keep the programming running. Is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, if they can keep the program running, then they still stay in power.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, the thing is that their power is waning, whether they want it to or not. And everybody is starting to catch on to the fact that, you know, these are, you know, MK Ultra-like programs that have been implemented into our television and all of our electronic devices.
Yep.
And they're getting it. More and more people are catching on to it.
It's that idea of a false sense of scarcity, right? Is what I think is the big fear thing, right? That we'll never have enough and we have to do what we're told or we'll run out or so that's why I think it gets back to that misinformation. Let's go back to the breeding rabbits. Imagine if we could all simply do that and how instantaneously we would all be wealthy if we all had the comms device and we all could just start trading, how that would debase the entire power structure of this planet as every other person just starts to become this powerhouse of capitalism.
Well, think about how much Greta Thunberg's losing her traction on trying to convince all of humanity that we're all going to die from global warming and climate change over the next 10 years. They've been trying to peddle that nonsense to us for decades. And every time we turn around, it's like, oh, well, this is just another political control thing. They've been doing this every 2 years, every 4 years.
Yep.
You know, it's an ongoing thing, and people are starting to catch on to this and go, wait, didn't you just say this 20 or 30 years ago that this was going to happen? And still didn't happen.
Yep. In the 70s, they were threatening global cooling.
Saying, oh, well,
Right.
right. And they were saying that the oceans were going to rise up. And it's like, well, they said that 100 years ago. And now we can like literally compare and contrast pictures of the same shoreline from 100 years ago to today. And they're the same as they were then.
I find it laughable.
Not even an inch of difference.
I find the threat of global warming laughable at presentation. When somebody goes, oh, the planet's getting warmer. So what? Like, seriously, so what?
Right.
Well, it's bad. How is it bad? Oh, the greenhouse gases are going to make what? The plants grow more? What are you talking about? Greenhouse gases make plants grow. Plants are good for the environment, right? What the hell are they talking about? What's the problem?
Plus, think of a glass of water that's full of ice. When it melts, it's still the same mass. And people are thinking all this ice is going to melt and rise the oceans. They're like, no, it's not. It's still the same. It's just
all relativity.
Right.
Well, I mean, granted, there is ice that's above sea level, so theoretically, but I mean, these are all they're all threats. I mean, it's not actually happening. So it's like, global warming. I mean, don't get me wrong. If we were to have global cooling, if the planet was covered in ice, there's a threat. We can't grow stuff. I'd be more concerned with global cooling and the glaciation of the planet is a real concern, but global warming is not actually a real threat. Like, it's a farce. I mean, I joke around. I'm up here with Holly in Alaska, and we joke around, and we tease, and we say we're with the group called Alaskans for Global Warming.
That's awesome.
Like, please let it get warmer.
Yeah, like, hurry up, man. Like, use more hairspray and stuff. Whatever you got to do. Whatever the bogus threats were. Remember back in the day, we're going to kill the planet with hairspray. Really? Really?
In the 80s, I don't know.
There was a lot of hairspray going on.
By Aquanet.
What about all the they were doing all those core samples of the glaciers. They went down to Antarctica, and they were doing all those core samples, and they found that they took samples from like somewhere around 400 million years ago or whatever, and throughout all of those core samples, they were able to determine that every single warm up and cool down that we've experienced is completely cyclical, and that this particular time in space is no different than any of the other cycles that we've experienced in the last 420 million years.
Exactly. Yep. It's just all how they hype it, and I remember there was the song back in the 80s, Don't Believe the Hype. And people need to remember that lyric. Everything we're getting sold now, it's just hype. There's no substance to it. The mass media it's a hype machine. So don't believe the hype, folks. It's that simple. Jeez. Well,
go to the Freedom of Information Act and look up some of the different, programs and projects that a lot of us are talking about and referring to. I mean, it's literally, a point and a click away. I mean, you can look up all this stuff, all of the technologies, all of the declassified information about, some of the tech that we are referring to that would corroborate a lot of our stories.
Yeah, the tech is a good place for people to start looking because it can't be argued with. This stuff exists. We have the 3 patents that came out this year from the Navy by Salvatore Pais. So those are very important for people to pay attention to. And lest we forget, I mean, not for nothing, folks, the powers that be love word games and like putting stuff right under your nose. So did any of you guys happen to pay attention to the name of the person on the patents? Salvatore Pais?
Savior of the world.
Yeah, it's Spanish translation for savior of the country. País.
Right. Oh, yeah, país.
Yep.
El mundo would be world, but yeah, país.
Savior of the country is just a really interesting name to go on those 3 patents, I thought.
It's really cool.
Yep. all kinds of word games and all kinds of stuff for people to look up. But I am noticing we are hitting the 2-hour mark, so I don't want to keep you guys forever and ever. But it was a fantastic chat. It was nice meeting you guys, and I hope you can have the time to maybe come back for another roundtable in the future, because there's always more connections to be made for everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Amaria.
Yep. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
No problem. This is great. This is the first time that I was able to do a live arrangement like this with the format in my studio. So I'm very happy to have pulled it off. And I did notice on the website we had a fistful of folks following us along with the live show. Too bad nobody was bold enough to call in, but we'll get someone next time. I hope we'll get a bite eventually. Someone will be brave enough to call in at some point. It's all good. But everybody, thank you very much for being here today. And as always, if you could like, subscribe, and share to Deciphering.tv or Deciphering My Experience on YouTube, it would really help get the information out there. Thanks for coming, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.